Hi everyone, namaste. It's Lauren from Sonic Yoga. I'm here today with Keith Partington and we are going to talk about yoga. So this is our Monday Back to the Roots Instagram live session where we like to share a little bit about the practice of yoga beyond just doing the poses, right? So this all started a few months ago when I did an IG Live interview with Yoga and Life magazine, and they asked to open Sonic. So one of the ways it's changed is that it's kind of lost some of the roots of yoga. So Keith and I are trying to bring that back. And Keith's joining now. Here he is. Hey Keith, how's it going? Good
Hey
to see you
Lauren, it's going
too.
great. Great to see you. How did this start?
Oh, it
I interrupted you. How did
started
this whole
because
thing
I was
start?
doing, I did an interview with Yoga Life magazine, and
Right.
she asked me, how has yoga changed in the past 21 years since we opened Sonic? And so I told her, when we used
Man.
to go to yoga class, it was like, sat
Yeah.
down, we did pranayama, we did mantra, we meditated, it was like a
Yep.
2-hour experience, 90-minute minimum. And
Yep.
then you and I were talking about it, and then we decided to do these sessions because the reality is that a lot of people don't know that. They just don't know that. They don't know what yoga is.
Right.
So can't blame them because nobody ever taught them, right? So yeah,
They know what's being
exactly.
presented to
And
them.
unless you're doing a teacher training, you're not
Yeah.
going to get the behind the scenes look, right?
Right. 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 So yeah, you and I are on very much on the same page there, and we started talking about like how are we going to turn this thing toward the direction that we believe it should be going, and also that it's our responsibility. We have a heavy responsibility here to care for this practice, and we are responsible for presenting it to people. So this is why we started thinking about lengthening classes again, and then what could we include in the lengthening of the classes. And it's a tricky one because there's expectations that have come about because of how the presentation of yoga has shifted and how much it's been commercialized. And for obvious reasons, it needs to remain commercially viable. We want the studio to be there. We want all yoga studios to be where they are right now and to keep growing and thriving, But so we have to somehow make sure that it's being communicated to, and that this practice is not only deep and ancient, but there's a practical way to know that and to bring it into your life that is actually very, very accessible. It's just a matter of like where are we training our mind and where are we training the messaging toward all of this. So this is a great day. Just the fact that you and I are doing this, and everybody, you can see everybody's joining. So just this makes me so much happier than that we're doing this and trying
And
to
the
shift the
other thing is
narrative a
Keith
little
and I
bit.
are also trying to introduce some practices to everyone who's dialing in. So if you dial in, we chat for about 15
Yeah.
minutes, and then we usually do some sort of practice. So we teach you something that's very practical, and all of those videos are posted on the Sonic Instagram page. So if you ever have like 5 or 10 minutes and you just want to do a little yoga practice, beyond the asana, you can just tap on the Sonic Instagram page and on one of the lives that Keith and I have done over the past few months. There's a bunch of them now. And you can have a little practice.
Yeah. And just also, Lord, to clarify, because I know my mom, for instance, is like, how do I see the old ones? But you go to the Reels section. So there's the posts and there's the Reels, and they're all in the Reels section, and they'll be there forever. And you can access them anytime you want because it takes a little practice to get familiar with these things. And so that's why they're there, and that's why we keep them on our page for everyone to enjoy whenever they want to. And we really do want to encourage people to do a little something on their own
Is
each
that
day.
your mom,
It's very, very
Charlene
easy.
Partington?
And
Hi, Charlene.
yeah, that's
Hi,
my
Shirley. Shirley's one of our long-time comics. Got
Shirley. Yeah,
a couple
Shirley's
of
here.
people.
Yep,
Dana's
yep,
here.
yep.
Kuko.
Hmm.
I don't know who Yen Stars is. That's a cool name. IG name. Annette.
That's that's uh
Oh,
that's Sue Yen, and she's about to
Yen.
do our 300-hour program, Lauren. She's
Oh.
gonna join our 300-hour
Hi,
program. So that's who that
Yen.
is.
Hi, love you too, Shirley. We miss you. Yeah. So we also just have a beautiful community at Sonic. The live classes. We're adding a lot of workshops. If we ever have like the end of the day and like a Sunday evening, a couple of times a month, we're doing these amazing, just really chill workshops. Keith did one, a crystal workshop. What else is going on? Jeffrey's doing something. Monica.
Jeffrey Keith started off our new, we have now regular series workshops. So Keith started off with the crystal healing, and then Jeffrey followed up with inversions. Monica's going to do chakras coming up in a couple of weeks, and then following that, Keith is going to do the benefits of mantra and meditation. And so that's a big part of like how we're trying to turn this thing toward a direction exactly that we want it to be going, is to offer regular, deep, instructive practices that people can walk away with tools that they can use, and then we'll keep slowly introducing those elements into our regular classes. And part of how we're doing that, of course, is to make the regular classes just a little bit longer, just a little bit, so we have more space for this stuff to happen. And people are responding, and people come up to me all the time and talk about how much they appreciate the longer practices and also these IG lives, which I hear about a lot too. So you're right to bring that up, Lauren. Honestly, our community, I think, each of us feels every now and then like it's kind of startling how strong and committed and dedicated the community still is, and how long so many of our community members have been around. And we have such a solid foundation of real yogis who really always have been curious about the complete practice and practicing the whole, every element of this practice. So we should get in soon to like what we mean by that, right? What do we mean by that?
By real yogi, or by what?
Real,
by the real
practices, the comprehensive practices.
I mean, look.
So, there's asana, there's the yoga poses, but
yoga poses are helping to clear the channel, to clear the vessel, and not to just go bang out there and get really esoteric, but the reality is we're trying to realize that we are God, right? Like that's really what we're doing. Let's just get right down to it. But if you're not ready for that, there's lots of little steps that have to happen in the meantime. Meanwhile, you just don't go from, to the full Monty. It's, first it's just clearing your channel, clearing the vessel, becoming aware that you have a body beyond your physical body, that there is something called an energy body, that it does house your emotions, that it is affected by your lifestyle and your practices, that it is something that can be healed and nourished and nurtured just like your physical body, that it needs to be taken care of, and that there are, these practices that can do that, and there's also practices that can help your mental state, your mind, your psycho-emotions, that you don't have to go to a psychotherapist. You can. I went to a psychotherapist for years, and it helped me for sure, but my yoga practice is what I feel, I attribute my ultimate healing to, right? My daily yoga practice. Because going to a therapist, even if you go once a week, what are you going to do the other 6 days, right? You still have to do something to survive.
Right. Yeah. And, listening to what you're saying, it all reminds me of a phrase that I love and use often, which is self-realization. We're trying to realize the self, and the self in this case being, usually written with a capital S self. What is that? What does that really mean? And also you really brought us right into this moment, didn't you? By saying, we're all gods. So what does that mean? And the thing is, there are traditions the world over, and it's in all the texts, in many different traditions where they'll say something to the effect of that God is within you, and that's what we're really, getting after is like, who are you really? When you uncover the layers of what we actually think of as our identity, is identity self, like where we were born, how we were nurtured, the experiences that we had, what we became interested in, what we studied, now what is our job title. That's all identity, and underneath all of that is the self, your authentic and eternal and changeless self. And so yoga practices are, from the physical down to more and more subtle planes, are entirely about uncovering those layers and finding out, what your true self is and what animates that, and what are the ramifications in your daily life and how you perceive things. And that to me is like where the big shift happens in how we perceive the things around us that are usually affecting us so deeply. Like we really can feel, I think, often like we are buffeted by all the events that are happening around us and losing sense of what really, really is important and what we won't even be thinking about or caring about even a year from now or 6 months from now, and staying tethered to that star that should be guiding us, which is who we really are.
Absolutely. I mean, in the first few sutras of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, he essentially says, right, we want to quiet the mind stuff, right, so that we can see our true nature, right? So this is why we practice, so we can quiet the mind stuff, so we can see our true nature. Because if we don't, then we think we are the mind stuff, right? So what he's saying, what he means by that, I know you know what he means, Keith, but just for the people that are listening, is that we want to quiet the thoughts that are moving through our head, that ego identification that Keith is talking about, so that we can see our true self. Otherwise, and the otherwise is really important, we think we are those thoughts, right? We don't realize what our true nature is. We go around living our life thinking that we are our intellect, thinking that we are only our mental state. And that causes us to suffer. It just does, because the mind is in the realm of what Patanjali calls prakriti, which is nature. And what defines nature is that it's always changing. It's always shifting, right? And you know that when you live your life, your emotions are always changing, your cells are always changing, we're always aging, the seasons are changing, the sun is rising and setting, things are always shifting around. And those shifts are what cause the dissonance, the disturbance, right, to our mindset. But our true self, if you would, entertain the thought, our God self, our self-realized, is always Satchitananda. It's always truth, consciousness, and bliss. It's always the same. It never changes. It's always perfect. Right? So this is why, that's the motivation to identify with the true self, so that we can ultimately live in that state of the Jivan Mukti, if we can live in that state of freedom. Right? He calls the realm of Prakriti is bondage, because we are limited by all of these situations that are constantly being thrown at us. And we all know, anyone who's lived more than, a couple of years knows that life is not easy, right? That we're here to learn. We're here to learn lessons. So, yeah. So the practice is important, beyond the asana. The asana is great. It's a great way to get your body in physical condition. It's a great way to purify the internal organs. It helps to reduce stress. It helps to connect you with your breath. It helps to prepare you for these other practices, right? Because if you don't move your body, then it's kind of hard to take it to the next level. So, yeah. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. It's asana, the yoga postures that we do, the physical work we do, it's kind of like you're knocking on the door. And you have to knock on the door to get the door to open. But then walking through the door has much more to do with the meditative practices and the breath work that is very focused and very specific. And the thing is that I think you would agree, Lauren, like we can't really, it's a big order to think that we can get into those subtle practices without making our physical body stronger and more limber, because there's something about the stillness. We have to start in stillness. So we have to start by making sure that the body can remain still. And then we can make the breath very, very, essentially, ultimately quite still. You'll still be breathing, but it's very, very low level and very even and very consistent. So there's an incredible stillness to the physicality, the part of us that we can touch and really feel physically. And then that stillness starts to seep into the mind. That's we have to start with the body. Otherwise, we'll be trying to sit here and go like, I know it's a good idea to meditate, so let me try to meditate. And we'll be getting really agitated because it's very hard to sit up. It's very hard not to fidget when we feel any sort of agitation or whatever. It's very difficult to do. So we think we're training our bodies in the West to, look better and be stronger and all of that, and even to purify the digestive organs. That to me is also like something where the Western mind can easily grab onto it and say, that makes sense. We are doing it and we get those benefits from it, and that's really wonderful. But the reason we're really doing it is to train from the outside in how to become truly still, so we can really see. It's kind of like if you're looking at the edge of a clear body of water, like just a pond, and you skip stones across the pond and you see the ripples, and you can be fixated on the ripples. So we do yoga poses and we feel the effects of the yoga poses, and it feels like rewarding or very tiring, but that can be rewarding in itself. And we're noticing something, we're seeing something. But then you stop skipping stones across the pond and you start to see the water become still. And then you realize you're starting to see below the surface of the water, and there's stuff that you can see there. There's a whole life happening under there that is like so endlessly interesting and literally deep. And that's kind of what happens when we do yoga asana, I think, is that we have this energetic effect from the outside in on the physical body. And then we start to notice the differences when we're actively doing that and we're not doing that. And when we're not doing the physical poses, we start to realize we're noticing more subtleties deep within us. And that's how you're coming to know the self. It still starts with asana, but we have to understand why we're doing it, where it's supposed to be leading. And that's why conversations like this
the
are
other
so
thing
vital.
about the physical body is that, and again, to go back to Patanjali, is that the physical body can become a distraction to the practice. And so we do the asana so that we can become what us yoga teachers refer to as embodied, so that we can become one with our body, so that our body is not a stranger, so that our body doesn't feel foreign, so that our body isn't having aches and pains, so that our body isn't stiff, so that our body becomes something that we are very invested and connected to. So when we sit down to meditate, the body doesn't distract us. It doesn't talk to us. It just kind of like becomes connected more to our mind and our soul, like the mind-body connection deepens, and then the body is no longer a distraction. And when the body is no longer a distraction, then it's easier for the mind to move into some of these more advanced practices. Speaking of, it's 12:52, so I think we should do a little something. I think it's your turn, Pete, if you're up for it. I did something last week. If you want to do a little something, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
We have only 8 minutes.
Yeah, we have plenty of time actually, because this one's very simple, and I think simple honestly is almost always better for people, at least to start with. Really, it's simple. So the thing is that we're, when we do endeavor to engage in a subtle practice, we want to draw the awareness inward. There must be some way to draw the awareness inward. We can't just think like, okay, I'm going to look within. It's not going to lead you anywhere. So we do something very specific, and I think we'll find that even in its very simplicity, the specificity of it is going to do something like really quickly to get us looking in the direction we need to look, which is this way. All right, so let's close our eyes, everybody, please. Even Lauren's going to close her eyes. I'm going to close my eyes. So from here on out, you can just listen. Now, sit tall. See if you can let your shoulders lower a little bit, further away from your earlobes than they usually are. And let's also tuck the chin inward toward the nape of the neck. So don't bring the chin to your collarbone, just bring it back a little bit, because that's going to lengthen your neck, your cervical spine. And that's critical to overall having posture that will allow energy to move through the subtle body system. And we can just trust that that is the case. We don't want to think more about this. We want to think less about this and just be. So sit really tall so energy can move through you. That's the reason. And now, of course, you're breathing. So let's close the mouth if it's not already closed. So the breath is moving in and out of the nostrils only. And as soon as you draw your awareness to this, you can feel immediately that air is moving through those small apertures, your nostrils. You can feel that happening. And as that's happening, you'll notice that the breath immediately starts to get longer, like the inhales take longer. And you feel more of the capacity of your lungs. You feel the belly moving outward a little bit. You feel the rib cage moving outward at the inhale. And then when you start to exhale, you'll also notice that the exhale suddenly is quite long and quite smooth. So that's exactly what we want when we breathe in and out of the nostrils. It will slow the breath down, and it will deepen the breath as a result. And now let's just imagine that we can see our breath. Imagine that you can see it, just like a very thin trail of smoke. Like we've all been beside a campfire at some point, and when the campfire is dying out and there's just those embers burning, you can see these thin trails of smoke rising up from those burning embers. So imagine you can see your breath just in that way, a very long, thin trail of smoke. And so the next time you inhale, let's visualize the breath coming in through the nostrils, moving past the soft palate and down the throat, and then into and around the heart. So visualize the breath swirling and snaking around the heart before going back up the throat, past the soft palate, out the nostrils. Watch it as it drifts away from your nostrils, and then see it curl back in toward your nostrils as you draw the next inhale in, and then just see it moving past the roof of the mouth, down the throat, and playfully moving in and around the heart before moving back up the throat, past the roof of the mouth, through the nostrils, and watch the breath drifting away from you before it curls back in toward you as you take in the next inhale, and just follow it as it moves down and into and around the heart. And notice that it's pausing around the heart and moving playfully around it before moving back up the throat, out the nostrils, drifting away from the nostrils, before you see it curl back in as you draw in the next inhale, and then back down into and around the heart. Notice that it seems transfixed by the heart itself, moving around it, exploring it before you exhale. And then watch as the breath just leaves you, as if it's not even going to return. Just watch it drift away. And then when you inhale, you see it moving back in towards you. And it's just on its own, finding the heart again, moving in and around before leaving the body again. Watch the breath leave the body. Watch the breath curl back in toward you as you draw in the next inhale. And just keep following in your mind's eye into and around the heart. Just keep following the path of the breath. As this is happening, feel the rib cage expanding outward on the inhale. Feel the collarbone dropping on the exhale. And this entire process is evidence of a miracle. Your consciousness, not just your existence, but your consciousness, your awareness of your existence. I notice that there are your thoughts, but then there's you observing the thoughts that you're having. So the thoughts are your intellect, the thoughts are your mind stuff. But someone is watching that. And that's your eternal, changeless self. And that's what matters. That's what's beyond circumstance, beyond conditioning. And if we just take a few moments each day to get in touch with that, perceptions of events around us are going to start to change. And then the events themselves will change. They'll have much less power over you. So let the breath continue as it's been going. Just let it continue on. And keeping the eyelids closed, notice the level of light in the room that you're in. You can tell through your eyelids how much light is in the room, whether it's daylight, whatever it is. You can sense it. So just let yourself come into that awareness of the visual again, and then let the eyelids open just a little bit, and then you'll confirm, oh yes, that is the light I expected to see, and I'm back in this present moment. And that's it, everybody. Try that every day for a few minutes.
Good stuff.
Thanks, Lauren. Good to see
See you all next
Thanks
Monday,
everybody for joining
12:30,
us.
or at Sonic. Check it out, sonicyoga.com. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you, everybody.